busiest part of the year for us to really make the money, just like retailers catch it at Christmas, Thanksgiving to Christmas. We construction people catch it from
florists, Mother's Day.
Absolutely. Spring to fall, it's time for us to really, to get out there and make a buck. And you want to know that my wife worked in West Virginia 2 years ago. And so as soon as you click that box, it says, well, you're not eligible.
Wow.
You're not eligible for unemployment, which is a standard. That's actually a standard question when you file for regular unemployment.
From an underwriting standpoint, I don't, why is that a kick-out question?
I have no idea. Because I think honestly, because that's a standard question on the regular unemployment. Because the state of Pennsylvania, what happens is they want to split it per se. So let's say that you did work in West Virginia for a year and you worked for this new employer for a year. You're just a regular Joe, not a self-employed person. Now it's like, well, you're going to go back. They want to look at your pay scale for the last couple of years. So Pennsylvania says, we'll pay you half, but we're going to go back and West Virginia is going to pay the other half. I see. You have to file in both places or whatever it might be. In other words, if you just left a job in West Virginia, you live in Washington, like a lot of people do, you can't file for Pennsylvania unemployment. Because you worked in West Virginia. They've got the money. So it all makes sense. But I think that's where that question comes from.
It didn't belong on the application.
It's irrelevant for what's happening.
I see.
And the whole thing also about the question about working for a state agency or whatever and these kind of things. What does that have to do with the fact that I'm self-employed? And some of the people in our group, they started their business 2 months ago. Now they're unemployed. They need this unemployment package, but you have to go back. Some people got a message, in error, stating that, no, you need to go and file for regular unemployment. Okay, so they followed, the website said go do it. So they filed for regular unemployment, got their PIN number, got their whatever, so on. And this was a week later, another form comes out from the state, which we posted on our site, on our group, which says, if you got that message, that was a mistake, don't do it. Now it's okay, but I did do it. So how do you undo it? Wow. We went through the process. My wife and I both went through the process of okay, now that's great. They got this little, because you can't call anybody because, everybody's staying home. But there's a little chat line. So we get on the little chat box. And so my wife's chatting with this person, explaining the situation of how this works. And the response was, well, we can't help you with that. Okay, then what's the chat thing for? We couldn't get past. In other words, you have to answer these questions to qualify to fill out the form to be able to send it in.
That chat thing was probably AI. I doubt that was even. It probably, because you can buy that stuff and throw it on your website.
Absolutely.
To handle some basic,
right.
Basic
questions. So then what happens? They said, well, you have to send in an email with your information. Okay. Well, the email response time is like 5 to 8 days to get an email back. So you send in an email, they review whatever this is, and they just send you back whatever the canned answer is, which is, for my wife, it was, you have to file in West Virginia. West Virginia has nothing to do with the fact that we're self-employed and out of work in Pennsylvania. So here we are back at the same thing. We're back to ground level one, which is there's a program, but there's not a program.
That's right.
Now, if we'd have been in business for 5 solid years with all of our payroll, accounting, this and that and everything else, then okay. But what about the people that did just start up recently and the people that we incorporated last year, which changes all of our information? So it just, again, the state's falling short on being able to keep these small businesses alive. Very
frustrating. By the way, I heard yesterday on KDKA, Marty Griffin in the morning, he's been really advocating. I think he was talking with the state's auditor general, but he was saying that some individuals have recorded as many as 900 calls to the unemployment bureau or whatever, which, by the way, is closing, as I understand it, every day at 4:30, right?
Oh, well, of course, yeah.
They haven't extended their hours.
No.
Global pandemic, right?
Yep.
At 4:30, still pulling the holiday shifts for Easter. Okay?
Absolutely.
This is your state at work. And again, please understand, I'm not ripping on the state any more than I feel that I should.
Right.
But you're talking about people. Now, you're 7 weeks into this issue. Every day, probably finding it difficult to sleep, probably finding it difficult to, just take care of some of the normal
Yes.
functions in life, wondering how's this going to turn out, and you know, being completely jerked around by the system, whether it's I can't find anybody to speak to, 7 or 8 days, you know, which I say to our listening audience, when we do go to vote, or the next time you think that government is a panacea, and by the way, government's done a very good job to get people to believe in government. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but I mean, there's some great salespeople, you know, where government's the answer, baby. I mean, and the fact is right now, I stand back and I'm looking at the inefficiencies. I'm looking at from the beginning of this pandemic, whether it was the states, the Surgeon General, masks aren't, you know, they don't work. Now it's got to wear a mask.
Yes, right.
Masks, no masks, 2,200,000, 60,000, you know. When we cast our vote, you know, I think that it is important that people remember at the end of the day, you know, it's up to you. One of the things I'm learning, it is up to the individual to make it or break it in this life. And right now, the small business owner, the mom and pop shop, the self-employed person, they are being marginalized. They are being overlooked. And many of them, I am concerned that many of them are just not going to make it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a life changer. This is like you said, it's quite the big deal. And, you know, when we're looking, quite the big deal. When we're looking at the, like you said, you're talking about being the whole thing about government. And you know, you and I talked a little bit before also is, you know, as Americans, and you know, I was born in the '60s. Just dating myself a lot, but early,
Jim, I'm right there with you.
I know, yeah, early '60s, and but you know, it was one of those things where you know we watched the transition in the late '60s and the early '70s, and that's when the young people, whether you wanted to call them hippies or beatniks or whatever, really started to revolt against the American culture of 2 martini lunch, 9 to 5, white shirt, black tie. Believe in your government no matter what they say. We had people over in Vietnam, and we weren't getting answers as to why they were in Vietnam.
That's right.
You know, and it's like, why are we losing American citizens?
I remember that.
Why are we losing American citizens for a war that doesn't involve us?
That's right.
You know, and of course, then you're coming off the Cold War portion of it. You know, well, you know, we have to stop the spread of communism. Okay, well, and to this day, I still don't really believe that South Vietnam, right, would have really led to the downfall of the United States.
Nor do I.
Okay, I can't imagine
that. But they always need a boogeyman, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it was one of those things where we weren't even fighting the Russians, right? We were just fighting the North Vietnamese. And again, it was just so that's when it was. And I remember in high school, you know, one of my favorite shirts said "Question Authority."
Yes, I remember that, gang.
I wore that shirt to school as often as I could.
Yes, sir.
Much to my father's dismay, because my dad worked in the city, you know, and he was. But my dad was, you know, kind of flexible in his thinking. But still, you know, teachers didn't like it. You know, you don't question authority. Right. Well, they did back then. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of now.
Yeah. Oddly enough, you know, it's interesting that a lot of those people, this is my observation, a lot of those people that I remember wearing the beads and the hippie hair, you know, and kind of, you know, screw the man, you know. It's interesting that many of them today have become dyed-in-the-wool statists. I don't know what happened, but I'm telling you from firsthand observation, a lot of them have drunk the Kool-Aid.
Yes, yeah.
And are big time statists.
We are lulled. We have been lulled after all of these things that took place. We've been lulled and back into that slumber, that deep sleep of the government will take care of us. We are Americans. We live in America, the greatest country on the planet. You know, and even when I get frustrated with the government for whatever reason, you know, you look at other places you could live, you know, and with our shortfalls and whatever, America is still a really great place to live.
I love it here. I do.
And again, but the government will take care of us. They're going to defend us. They're going to protect us. Now we've kind of made that switch over to now they're telling us what to do, when we can do it, what we have to wear,
who's essential, and who's not essential.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, I don't know how you feel about that, but you know, there's something that grates against me about a group of people deciding essential or non-essential.
Yes.
I'm of the opinion, Jim, that we're all essential.
Right.
I think that people's basic needs are essential. Their loved ones, their children, their grandchildren. I take issue with that.
Oh, so do I.
I really take issue with it. And I think this picking winners and losers, like, when I think of some of what you probably do when you fix a kitchen in a non-commercial environment, Lowe's, they can be open and sell the cupboards for the kitchen, the sink, but Joe, the contractor in the field, cannot install it, even if that house is vacant.
Yep.
Explain that to me.
I wish I could.
Yeah.
I wish I could.
And Marty Griffin, like I said yesterday, was going back to the unemployment, but he said things were so bad, they actually took a live call from a woman on the air who had been reduced to, and she wasn't self-employed, but just on this unemployment compensation deal, she was reduced to $9 and was literally fretting of her life. And they actually raised some money, and I think Marty drove $300 in cash by her house, personally delivered it. But he is leading a clarion call, calling out these people, because apparently the computer system has been outdated for forever.
Right.
Okay. You would think that in the midst of a global pandemic, the state, which seems to be, they've got some deep coffers, correct?
Right.
You would think that they would be able to hire additional help. That's what a private business would do.
Right.
If I saw a rush come on my company in our particular field of expertise, and like, for example, open enrollment. We're in the healthcare and financial services business. What do we do when we see that wave of people coming?
Yep.
We drill down, we hire up, we ramp up, we train, we prepare for it.
Correct.
Now, granted, perhaps COVID-19 or coronavirus blindsided people. I think it was bigger than people expected. But this is a long time in the game to still not have your shit together.
Correct.
You know what? And I think it's unconscionable that the state of Pennsylvania right now, that we have so many people struggling to make it, and the self-employed, the mom and pop shop, the business with 10 or fewer employees, the business with 50. These people are incredibly essential to the fabric of our community. And if they don't make it, there's going to be a huge void left.
Absolutely.
And people will realize, in my opinion, then, but it would be quite sad.
Right. Well, like I said, I said it's almost like that ripple up effect. That things are going to, if the bottom falls out, you have no foundation on which to stand. We've seen lots of, in the history, of the United States in the 50 some odd years I've been alive, we've seen a lot of things come and go. And we've read a lot of books, and there's been a lot of movies made, and it's, whether we've entered into an Orwellian state, you're looking at the caste system. I said, nobody ever would have thought that the Hunger Games was a prelude to the COVID-19 virus, where they're going to tell you whether you're essential or not. You're here or you're there. They're going to tell you that, I can't even think of the name of the movie, but the one says, okay, you're a farmer and you're a security person, and we're going to cast you into what you're going to be. And it's like, wait, that just doesn't make sense as to how we've come so far in such a short period of time to give up our freedoms, to allow them to be taken from us. Yeah. I don't even know that a lot of people realize that they've been taken.
That's greatly concerning to me.
I really do.
Yeah, I really said it well. And now I'm beginning to wonder if they're rights, or are they merely permissions? Because if the government can suspend... I had an attorney friend of mine when I was on this rant about the declarations that are clearly enumerated in the Pennsylvania Constitution. He said, well, Tom, your rights have been temporarily abridged.
Yeah.
An attorney.
Yeah, by who?
And now listen, here's how I think, right? I have some good attorneys that I work with, and I actually took that statement. I took issue with the statement, but I thought, well, I sent the Constitution or the Declaration of Rights to another local Washington attorney here, an older gentleman. He's salty. He knows which way the parade's going. He said, Tom, I see no I see no virus clause or anything, but the gentleman was talking about